We open on a younger Cody Brown, glowing with pride, surrounded by his first 13 children in their Lehi, Utah home. The scene feels warm, bustling, and full of promise. He looks directly into the camera, his eyes alive with determination, and declares with confidence, "I'm building a dynasty for my family. This is all for them." It was greater than words back then. It was a vow that religion and family would be the basis of something sturdy. That vow didn't hold. Suddenly, the screen cuts to a recent clip. Cody's face is twisted with rage, his hair disheveled, as he shouts at his grown sons, "You're living in my house. It's my money." The shift is jarring. Once the builder of a legacy, now a man accused of dismantling it piece by piece. What happened to the dynasty he swore? Was it ever there in the first place, or just a cover for something far worse? This isn't another story about a family breaking down due to bitterness. This is one of betrayal, taking money, and an alleged inheritance heist that might make you reconsider the entire Sister Wives saga. Welcome to Sister Wives Real News. If you're ready to move beyond the drama and uncover the hidden financial conspiracy that tore this family apart, now's the time. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the evidence we're about to share doesn't just hint at deception, it blows the lid wide open. So let's start at the beginning. Before Las Vegas. Before Flagstaff. Before the headlines and the scandals. There was something unspoken, what we'll call the Brown Family Trust. Not a legal document, not signatures on paper. Something deeper. A sacred pact built on faith, sacrifice, and the pooling of every resource into one shared future. One family, one bank account, one fate. That was how Cody talked his first 3 wives into adopting his creed. And at first, it wasn't philosophy, it was survival. Meri was first, Cody's official wife of 1990. She worked, she contributed, she anchored the operation. Her wages, small as they were, formed the basis of everything else. Then Janelle arrived. If Meri was the anchor, Janelle was the spark plug. The family's financial anchor, she held down steady bookkeeping and accounting work, drawing a good salary that sustained the family. Mortgages, food, bills, Janelle's paycheck covered it all. Every penny went straight into the family kitty, paying for the dream Cody claimed to be building. And Christine, the heartbeat of the family. She wasn't making taxable wages to take home, maybe, but she was more valuable than money. Not only did she mother her 6 but played a giant part in mothering all 13 of the earliest children. Cooking, instructing, caring for, she was the emotional anchor. Economists would calculate her unpaid labor in hundreds of thousands every year. In the real world, though, her work was just as heavy as Janelle's paychecks. Together, the 3 wives and compromises created the Brown family financial base. And then there was the game changer, TLC. After Sister Wives premiered in 2010, the Browns were in a financial situation they had never experienced. The paychecks were huge. And again, it was all to be deposited into the family bank. And this is where the tale gets dangerous. Legally, Cody's name may have signed on to those accounts. Morally? Spiritually? Even according to the laws of the very plural system he taught. He was just the steward, the CEO of a family corporation. The real shareholders were his wives, who invested their lives and sacrifices in the story being sold. And the beneficiaries? The kids. Logan. Aspen. Leon. Madison. Michael T. Hunter. Paydon. Garrison. Gabriel. Gwen. Isabel. Truly. These 13 originals had been more than Cody's kids. They had been the beneficiaries of the Brown Family Trust. Their youth, their experiences, their existence were the stuff that had turned the family wealthy and legendary. Their inheritance wasn't some distant possibility, it was being constructed in real life, episode after episode, check after check. And then, everything changed. Enter Robyn Sullivan. A divorced single mom of 3, burdened with tens of thousands in credit card debt, who joined the family not as a contributor but as a financial project in need of rescuing. Insiders claim she brought with her a mountain of debt, and almost immediately, it was absorbed by the very family pot built on Meri's foundation, Janelle's labor, and Christine's endless caregiving. And that is only the start of the heist. The work and sacrifices of Christine, Janelle, and Meri were immediately put into use to pay off Robyn's debt. The combined inheritance of the original children was spent on her brainwashing into the family prior to when she'd spent a penny. The rules that had kept everyone in their place somehow bent in her direction thereafter. Where the other wives had subsisted Spartan lives and shared out what little there was for the good of the community, Robyn's arrival heralded a new era of solo extravagance. There was the bespoke wedding gown, an honor not bestowed upon any other wife. There was the solo honeymoon with Cody, a solo trip denied to each other wife in turn. And when the family fled Utah in the middle of night, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and their 13 children crammed into cramped apartments, whereas Robyn and her 3 kids were rewarded with a larger, nicer house. These were the warning signs, the first cracks in the foundation of one family, one future. But the final betrayal, the one where the trust of the family was hijacked for good, was not achieved by a purchase but by a pen. Cody's breakup with Meri, for the sake of legally marrying Robyn, was presented as a sacrifice and a labor of love. The narrative was easy to relate to and noble. He had to bring Robyn's children into his family to make them fully part of it. Meri was being praised as selfless, for giving way for the clan's sake. It was romantic, superficially, a narrative worthy of reality TV. But behind closed doors the truth was cataclysmic. This was not symbolic. It was a deliberate money move, the largest transfer of power in the family's history. By divorcing Meri, Cody severed the 24-year legal tie that anchored his assets, his estate, and his next-of-kin rights to her. She lost her legal shields in an instant, rights to spousal support, rights to community property, rights to his estate if he passed away. And then, shortly afterwards, Cody legally married Robyn, instantly conferring all of those rights and protections upon her. In a matter of moments, Robyn and her 3 biological children were declared sole heirs of all Cody's assets and would inherit his properties, his future income, even his social security and death benefits, all of which had been purchased through a lifetime of labor by Meri and Janelle, were now legally the property of Robyn's team. And so, with that, 2 disparate classes of inheritors were established. First class, Robyn's kids, Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, and soon Solomon and Ariella. Their fate was now legally bound to Cody's wealth, bound by statute. Second class, the original 13 children, born to Meri, Janelle, and Christine. Their rights eroded, typically tenuous, and subject to only Cody and Robyn's benevolence. The inheritances they'd helped build through their mere presence on television were now withheld. This was not a love sacrifice. This was a power move. Cody hadn't just traded wives, had rebranded the succession. The dynasty he'd vowed all his kids would get was now, by design, a dynasty for Robyn's family alone. And the worst twist of all? The OG wives and children were conned into partying over the very same thing that excluded them. But the betrayal was not over yet. What began as a legal strategy soon turned into a ruthless disassembly of the family's most cherished assets. And to discover why the fortune went awry, we must go back to Las Vegas. Dead End Alley Vegas was as close as the Browns ever got to achieving family trust. 4 personalized homes, side by side, one for each wife. For the first time ever, there was real equity, real property, real security. Each woman had a house in her name, giving her and her children a share of the inheritance pie. If tomorrow the family fell apart, at least each wife had something to hold on to. It was their peak period of financial security. The only time the dynasty dream was in reach. But stability was not what Cody and Robyn sought. Consolidation was. Moving out of Las Vegas to Flagstaff, Arizona, did not make fiscal sense to anyone, with the exception of Cody and Robyn. It was abrupt, irrational, and prompted by paranoia. Cody claimed it was a matter of culture, a matter of keeping the family out of Vegas vice. But the real reason? The move facilitated liquidation. Janelle, the family's de facto CFO, fought the plan vehemently. She ran the numbers on TV and warned of the stratospheric risks, for houses to sell in a fickle market, multiple families to disrupt, a move to a more expensive city with no notion. Her warnings were dismissed, mocked as lack of faith. Why? Because reason wasn't on the table. Liquidation was. It was liquidating the sole actual financial cushion those first wives had ever had in their own names. It stripped away their stability, pulled their equity back under Cody's control, and set the stage for the next chapter of the heist. The life savings of the original wives, Christine's nest egg, Janelle's carefully built security, and Meri's one major asset, were all liquidated and funneled straight into a single source, the central, Cody-controlled family pot. And from it, the money did not drip into prosperity and security for everyone. It was shoveled into a fiscal black hole so adept at destroying wealth, it was a masterclass in asset disappearance. And that black hole was called Coyote Pass. It was a paper dream, a grand, handsome spread in Flagstaff where the family finally could all live under one roof, or at least live in houses side by side. Cody sold it as the ultimate promise fulfilled, the land that would be generations of sacrifice. Actually, Coyote Pass was a trap. The more than $1 million in net equity from the sale of the Vegas house was plowed into this raw, unbuilt property. And not only was it raw, but the Browns paid well over the top too. Area real estate people were aghast when the rumor got around that the family had bought problem land for $820,000. No utilities. No sewer. No water. No power. The cost to make the land livable was projected at costing them hundreds of thousands more. And, to top it all, the deal-breaker, the potential for a cistern issue that was keeping them from dividing the property into lots. Even Cody himself looked over the camera confessing that they might just be selling, for they could not possibly afford to build. So why buy it at all? Why spend every last dollar on a plot of land that could not hold their dreams? Because, and here's the hub of our theory, it was never about construction. It was about hiding wealth. The Vegas homes were actual. All of the wives possessed a deed in their own right, their own share of security that could be passed along to their children. But when they complicated everything into an elaborate land transaction, those assets were illiquid, unavailable, and contractually locked up in Cody and Robyn's hands. It was genius-level pettiness. Janelle, an economic powerhouse and homeowner, was reduced to residing in an RV on dirt that she technically owned but would never get to use. Christine ended up in a rental, miserably tethered to a land investment she grew to despise. The OG kid's inheritance was literally covered in Arizona dirt. And while the first wives made do without, something else was quietly gathering steam. The most incriminating one piece of evidence in the entire heist is one piece of property, the $890,000 home Cody and Robyn treated themselves to. While Meri, Janelle, and Christine made do on rentals or temporary RVs, Cody and Robyn came away with a gigantic 4,400 square foot home in one of Flagstaff's wealthiest subdivisions. This was not a house. This was an announcement. 4-car garage. Tree-lined, hidden lot. Plenty of bedrooms to accommodate all of Robyn's 5 kids. This was the new family command center, the new royal palace, paid for in full with the collectively held pool of cash that once belonged to everyone. Let's connect the dots. The Vegas equity, built on years of TLC check recipients, Janelle's check recipients, and Christina's unpaid labor, was once washed clean through Coyote Pass. And once the money became entangled and out of the OG wives' hands, a large portion of it went towards a down payment for Cody and Robyn's multi-million-dollar mansion. Whereas the useless land of Coyote Pass is all they have, this house is real. It will appreciate. It's in their names. And someday, it will go straight to Robyn's children, Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, and Ariella. It's the brick-and-mortar evidence of the theft of the inheritance. And the evidence isn't in deeds or mortgage papers. It's in the lives of the children themselves. Conversely, Robyn's kids, secure in their affluent lifestyles, showered in luxuries, indulged with expensive jewelry, the latest technology, and lavish parties. But most importantly, the material possessions. They have Cody's finest jewel, his time. He is there fully in their lives, in their successes, their school functions, their waking hours. And then there's the other side. The OG-13. The contrast is deplorable. Perhaps the worst case is that of Christina's daughter, Isabel. She struggled for years with horrific scoliosis and required drastic, life-changing surgery. The price tag? Tens of thousands of dollars. And how did the family who had made millions of dollars through TLC finance it? They set up a GoFundMe. Let that sink in. The embarrassment was staggering. A family who had made millions off of a reality TV empire were left to begging fans, the same people who had bankrolled them, for money to fund a daughter's life-altering operation. It was either the worst case of poor handling of money, or something far darker. And at the center of it all, Cody. Not only would he refuse to help with his daughter Isabel's medical care, but he refused to travel with her to New Jersey for the procedure, in the name of COVID restrictions. But when it was a wedding for one of his pals, the restrictions would magically vanish. The hypocrisy stung. His time and energy when his daughter was ill were elsewhere, invested in a worthless tract of land and a mansion for his favored family. Look at Garrison, Janelle's son. We see him on camera juggling jobs, pinching pennies and saving for the down payment on his own home. He's trying to build the very security that his dad dismantled piece by piece. And what does Cody do instead of giving a supportive hand? He screams at his sons, calls them freeloaders, and charges them rent to live in a house that was paid off by the same pot his mother's worked in. Picture Cody in his almost $1 million mansion, collecting rent checks from a son living just above the poverty line. It's the ultimate metaphor for the whole heist. The cycle repeats. Gabe, Janelle's son, must pay for his own car and each of his own expenses. Mykelti admits she and Tony, her husband, had to take a loan from his parents in order to make a down payment, a harsh reminder the Brown family bank had shut its doors to the OG children. This was not favoritism. This was a system. An inheritance apartheid so wide it was forced to be described as such. Everything that the luxuries provided Robyn's children, the jewels, the tech, the VIP parties, was paid for with the cost of the OG-13. Each penny spent on Robyn's family was a penny stolen from Isabel's business, from Garrison's deposit, from Gabe's freedom. And the last, tragic piece of the puzzle. In order to protect their money from any dispute, Cody and Robyn purportedly built a corporate firewall, Dabsark Entertainment, LLC. A name that speaks for itself. Dabsark, an acronym derived from the first letters of Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, Ariella, Robyn, and Cody. Look at that list again. Who is missing? Everybody else. Not an OG wife. Not one of the original 13 children. The same individuals whose sacrifices enabled the sister wives' empire were wiped out on the stroke of corporate paperwork. So what was Dabsark? On the outside, a typical LLC. But by insider estimation, it became the primary vehicle through which all the new money would flow. The theory is that TLC's deal was renegotiated not with the Brown family, but with Dabsark Entertainment itself. The consequences were ruinous. No more family pot. No more ethical dilemma about the shared profits. All the profits from the show would now rightfully belong to Dabsark's, rightfully Cody's, Robyn's, and her kids. Janelle and Christine? No longer shareholders of family wealth. Rather contracted to labor. Gig workers on the reality show built from their reality. Compensated what Cody and Robyn decided, no longer. This wasn't pilfering of the past, this was foreclosure of the future. The Vegas houses, the nest egg, had been hidden away in Coyote Pass. The future stream of wealth, the ongoing TLC cash, was locked within Dabsark's stronghold. The robbery was finished. The OG wives and children were written out, not just financially, but legally and for good. Cody was no longer the patriarch of one family. He was the CEO of a close corporation, and with Robyn as co-conspirator, he staged the ultimate hostile takeover. For years, audiences have watched the increasing drama between Cody and his older kids as family drama. They figured it was ego, rebellion, or another disagreement over draconian pandemic protocols. But when you reinterpret those explosion arguments as part of the inheritance heist, the story is quite different. Watching on TV was not just family melodrama. It was a trial, a courtroom duel televised for the eyes of millions. The older children, knowingly or unknowingly, were playing the dispossessed heirs, battling the one who had stolen their birthright. Their struggle wasn't teen rebellion. It was dispossession. And the battleground? Cody's infamous and flagrantly hypocritical COVID policies. He was insistent, demanding his sons, Gabriel and Garrison, give up everything. No work. No girlfriends. No existence. In short, no autonomy. He had to have them behind bars, captives in their own house. What exactly was being guarded here? Not the whole family. Just Robyn, her children, and Cody himself. The law wasn't about health. It was about domination. And the sons knew it. When Garrison rebelled, refusing to surrender his career, his means to economic freedom, he was not just a rambunctious young man. He was opposing the very system that had already stolen from him his birthright. His fury was not just annoyance. It was the timeless outrage of the disinherited. And when Head made enough money to buy his own home without a penny of help from his father, the day was more than a simple move-out. It was a declaration of independence. A rebellious suit made an entrance in the court of family opinion. Listen closely to Cody's own words during these confrontations. His fury wasn't that of a worried parent. It was the rage of a dethroned king. His slip of the tongue, "You're living in my house. It's my money," was the unguarded confession that exposed the truth. The myth of "our family pot" disintegrated in an instant. There was no "our." There was only "my." And nothing makes this point more poignantly hurtful than Gabriel's tearful disclosure. His father forgot his birthday. Not just forgot it, destroyed it. The only call Gabe received was to ask about a COVID contact. No acknowledgement, no birthday wish. Just silence. At its face value, it's emotional neglect. It's more than that, though. It's economic neglect in human form. Gabe was no longer an investment in Cody's mind. Not of the company. Not of the empire. Forgotten, because in Cody's new business model, he was already a sunk cost. The whining, the tears, the uprising, all the commotion of the OG children realizing, in the instant, that the kingdom they had been led to believe was being stolen from them. They weren't battling their dad. They were battling for their usurped destiny. And then there was the final judgment. Decades of quiet suffering, watching their security unravel into deeds and pieces of paper, had finally ended. The OG wives had reached their verdict. They revealed that the trust was broken. They financially, emotionally, and morally drained the Brown family business. This wasn't a slow divorce of a marriage. This was an emergency evacuation conducted by the original matriarchs. They did it one by one, evacuating whatever remained of their assets. They weren't leaving Cody. They were escaping a defaulted company with a discredited CEO. And the first choice that shook the empire? Christine Brown's departure. She had been for years the loudest voice championing the one family fantasy, the loyal one who made it all real. But when she did leave, it was not the dissolution of a marriage. It was the initial shot in the revolution. Christine Brown's abandonment was the hardest judgment first. She had been the most vociferous supporter of plural marriage for years, the sincere believer who continued to fly high the standard of one family, one vision. Her disillusionment, therefore, was the hardest judgment of all. Christine did not leave spontaneously. She left with evidence. She watched her Vegas home equity sucked into the Coyote Pass black hole. She watched Cody's devotion go completely to Robyn's family, even when her own daughter Isabel suffered through painful surgery with only her mom to hold her hand. And when the GoFundMe came out, an embarrassment that cried to the world that her kids were no longer privy to the family fortune, Christina's final fiat was unambiguous: the trust is violated, the CEO is sullied, and I'm dumping my share. In clearing Cody's belongings out of her garage, she wasn't divorcing a husband. She was foreclosing on a compromised partnership. And by selling her Flagstaff home, the same property Cody wept so bitterly about in his knife to the kidneys rant, she dealt her blow. She invested that money in a Utah duplex, a refuge near her children. That wasn't real estate. That was legacy rescue. A tangible, income-generating nest egg that would have her children provided for in the future beyond Cody's reach. Christine did not walk away, she battled the inheritance of her children. Then Janelle, the family fiscal realist, entered the battle. If Christina's departure shook the empire, Janelle's blew it apart. She was, for decades, the guardian of the family finances, the voice of reason, the unofficial believer in the one family pot. Janelle, who best knew numbers, blew it on Cody's dream, then there was no dream to fight for. She tried to make Coyote Pass work. She endured the humiliation of RV life, hoping that maybe the land would still prove to be what it was advertised to be. But in the end, she too saw the truth: Coyote Pass was not an investment. It was a money graveyard. Every dollar that went in was a dollar that would never be seen again, as Cody and Robyn wallowed in luxury. Janelle's face was cold as she accosted Cody. Her moment on the stand was her confrontation with Cody. Cool, calculating, and deadly, she laid out the facts. She had nothing to show for herself, her kids were neglected, and Cody's money scheme was smoke. By living on reduced finances, renting her own apartment, and taking up residence on her own, she cashed out her emergency withdrawal. She withdrew her kids from a lifetime of getting sucked dry. Her response was subtle but resolute: the company went bankrupt, and she was done subsidizing its corruption. And lastly, coup de grace, Meri Brown. The first wife. The original friend. The one whose loyalty had been Cody's last measure of authority. She had endured years of public humiliation, downgrading, and abandonment. Her presence had been Cody's last wellspring of legitimacy as patriarch. And she departed. Meri's exit was the closing gavel. By leaving, she ensured that her own assets, her business, her bed and breakfast, her hard-won independence, were shielded from further exploitation. Her departure proved that even the most loyal shareholder could no longer justify investing in Cody's hollow kingdom. Together, the three women collectively accomplished the biggest rescue mission in Sister Wives history. They could have just walked away with so much less than they deserved after a lifetime of toil and sacrifice. But what they saved was worth infinitely more: their freedom, their dignity, and their children's futures. They were the dynasty builders, not in what they were building with Cody, but in what they saved from his destruction. And Cody and Robyn, of course. They are perched on their plunder: $1 million house, a piece of land they owe, and a shell company. They are victors on paper. But their triumph is hollow. They are the kings of the stolen realm, isolated in their golden cage, haunted by the 13 children whom they disenfranchised. In the end, they were able to keep the possessions. But they forfeited the family. They forfeited the respect. And they forfeited the only thing that made the Brown name worth anything in the first place. Their legacy is not one of strength, not one of love, not one of family. It is the legacy of great betrayal.